Welcome to the Mortgage Mum podcast with me, Sarah Tucker, founder of The Mortgage Mum, where we believe mortgages are about more than just money. Join us every week where we will share with you bite-sized tips, interviews with inspiring people inside and outside of our industry, and tools to help you achieve balance in every area of your life. And a very warm welcome to today's episode of the Mortgage Mum podcast, and thank you so much for joining us. Now, the reason I say us is if you missed some of the earlier episodes in 2023, we are having guest hosts on the Mortgage Mum podcast while I'm on maternity leave. And these aren't just any guest hosts, these are hand-picked guest hosts from the Mortgage Mum team who I think are going to be amazing at sharing their knowledge with you in their unique voice, in their unique way, bringing on their own special guests to be able to deliver you high value mortgage content. Now, if this is the first time you're listening to the Mortgage Mum podcast, firstly, welcome. Thank you for joining us. But secondly, once you've listened to this episode, do make sure you have a browse through of season 1 and season 2, because there's so much content on here that I know has been really helpful to people in the past. Things like first-time buyers, top 10 tips you need to know, Japanese knotweed, what is it? And what do you do if you find it in a property that you love? Specialist buy-to-let. Do you buy properties in a limited company? Do you buy them in your own name? Remortgaging for home improvements or debt consolidation? Or dare you buy and create your own property from scratch by buying another, knocking it down and doing a self-build, which was a very recent episode this year that we covered in February. Lots and lots of content to try and help you in 2023, because this year more than ever, I believe education and knowledge is key in a cost of living crisis, in a recession, and in a market that is moving up and down very, very quickly. So I really hope that you enjoy our guest host episode. I know I am really excited to be listening to them, and I'll be introducing you each month still with my dulcet tones, just so that I can stay involved while I'm on maternity leave. Today's guest host is going to be none other than Zita. Zita is one of our senior mortgage and protection advisors here at the Mortgage Mum, and she's been an absolute force since she joined the team. Now, Zita also speaks Hungarian, so she has herself an amazing client base who are extremely loyal and dedicated. I'm sure this episode is not going to be in Hungarian today, but it's well worth you following Zita to follow her updates on the property market. And her guest today, I'm sure, is going to really offer you extra value in terms of what is happening in the property market now and what is coming up. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Zita.
Welcome to the Mortgage Mum podcast. I am Zita Latham, Senior Mortgage Broker and Protection Advisor. Today I am interviewing Chris Nathan. Chris is an estate agent and owner of Hound and Porter Estate Agents in Reigate, Surrey. Chris worked with major high street agencies over 30 years, and he has a huge amount of knowledge and experience when it comes to the property industry. Today we will be getting exclusive tips from Chris, such as property search tips, how to negotiate effectively so you can secure that dream home, and most importantly, we will hopefully find out if this is a good time to buy, or people would love to know. And when is the good time, really? A lot of people are asking me as well. So welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Very welcome, Zita. Nice to be here.
No, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. And believe it or not, you are the second estate agent on this podcast. And I'm really excited about it because you are such an important part of the process. You are the one who help our clients, mortgage clients, to find that dream property. And whenever I meet a client, they just want to know, Zita, where to start, how to search for a property, what to look at when I look at the property, what questions to ask from an estate agent. So they want to know these things, and you are the person to answer these questions. So first things first, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you and the agency.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Chris, the owner of Hound and Porter Estate Agents based in Reigate. The business was set up in October 2019. I've been selling property now for 33 years, mainly in the surrounding area. I was a managing director at another company, corporate company, and after I think nearly 18 years of being there, it became apparent that the public were looking for something different. So I set up Hound and Porter as a concierge sort of bespoke business to deal with a limited amount of customers. So many agents work on numbers, and as an owner, you'd feel like you're on a conveyor belt. Whereas what we tried to achieve is to help a small amount of people, around 25 at a time, with very, very high levels of service. We're nearly 4 years in. We're still going. People tend to like what we do. 75% of what we do now is referred or recommended. So I think we fill a gap in the estate agency market that's very different from most agents. It's either big corporate companies just interested in profit and turnover, or you do get some of these smaller independents that grow quite quickly and they end up being probably what they came away from at the corporate companies. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Sounds amazing. And I think we can tell the clients that we met probably about 3.5 years ago. And how we met was that you listed our property when we were moving. And I think I probably jump ahead a little bit. I didn't plan to ask this question first, but because you were telling me about how and what's important to you as a company, I think it's really important to mention when and we had to choose a company to list our property. We had high expectations, me being in the industry. We owned properties before sold properties, and the level of service can be very different. And people do worry about that. And I do get that from my clients. And first-time buyers don't know what to expect, really. So it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about what should they expect from an estate agency when they start looking for a property.
Yeah. So firstly, I don't know if you remember, Zita, but your house was the first house that we sold coming out of lockdown.
I know. It was a very interesting experience.
Wasn't it? It was very, very strange times. And we were out, I don't know if you remember, we went out delivering little sort of baskets of goodies for people that were stuck in their houses. But yeah, so I think from memory, it was either, I think the 13th or 14th of May, I think your house sold.
Possibly, yes. And yes, it was such a lovely touch, what you did in COVID. And you absolutely delivered over what we expected really from you. And that's what it is, the service side of the things is so important. And that's how you will be getting your recommendations. Absolutely. And people want that service. They expect good service, just like in any industry. So it would be good, I think first-time buyers would love to know, but also home movers, why they should choose an agency when they are selling a house. And as a buyer, what should they expect from you?
So that's a really good question. So as estate agents, we get paid by our owners, and many agents fall into the trap of we're paid by our owner, and therefore nothing else really matters. And I do accept part of that, but the reality is that many buyers, especially first-time buyers, have no idea and very low expectations of agents in general. So I think from my point of view, I think first-time buyers are different to third and fourth, time movers. First-time buyers, what's important is you're a little bit led by which agency's got the properties that you want to look at. So you don't. It will be great to be able to just buy through an agent that you know, and we do get people specifically wanting to buy through us. So we offer a home finders service where we'll really find out from a buyer, doesn't have to be a first time buyer, what they're looking for, and we'll deliver quite upmarket good quality leaflets to that area, and we get a lot of calls back from those. Interestingly, when we do that, many people think that it's all just a ruse to get a valuation, but we have genuine buyers and we get them to tell us the road names that they want, and we'll go out and we'll deliver these leaflets down those roads. So coming back to the question of what should a first-time buyer expect or want, I think it's all about relationships, and that's not just for first-time buyers, but buyers and sellers. And I hear this phrase, oh, I've been in the game for ages. For me, it's not a game. It's people's livelihoods, and it's emotionally driven a lot of the time, can be quite stressful. And when I set the business up, I was really keen to alleviate all that stress. Moving a house should be fun, and it should be exciting. And our job as agents is to make sure that every transaction will have road humps. And my view is we need to smooth those road humps out to make it as easy as possible and make sure they don't turn into brick walls. And a lot of that comes with experience. Buying a house would be great if you could buy through a certain agent, but the reality is that the house that you might want to buy is on with another agent that you don't know, or even that you don't necessarily like. But transparency, from my point of view, is arguably the most important thing. Definitely as us as agents, but also as buyers. Don't try and play the game, because it's not. Listen to the people who are going to give you honest and true advice, not those that think they know what they're talking about. And I think that if you can build a relationship with your agent that's elevated above you're getting paid to do the job, then you're going to work with someone who's going to help you. And part of my business is, don't like the phrase, but holding buyers and sellers' hands all the way through the transaction. Many agents fall short where it's all about, got to get the listing, and then we've agreed the price. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Whereas the reality is that if the transaction doesn't go through, as agents, you don't get paid. I mean, I've had 2 transactions that have gone over a year. So that's from point of offer to point of completion, which is the day that people move, have been over a year. One was almost on the nose, and one was a year, 1 week. So I can't think of any other profession where you work for a year for nothing, and then get paid at the end.
Absolutely. And I could not agree with you more. And here at the Mortgage Mum, that's exactly what we believe in. It is a process, and it's not just, administration and reserving of rates. It's much more than that, because once, for example, from our side or your side, when offer is accepted and we submitted an application, it doesn't stop there. And there are obstacles, and we do see those obstacles, and it's all about the agent and broker often and the solicitor working together and smooth those problems out and get them to that point where they can get the keys and move in.
I think the offer process is really difficult from a buyer's point of view, because you read that the house prices are falling and interest rates are going up, and what should we offer, and a lot of that will depend on the pricing policy of the agent. I can't comment on what other agents do, but our policy is we will value the property at what it is worth, backed up with evidence to show that it is what it's worth. And because the reality is that some agents will inflate the price to try and win that business and appeal to the human nature of greed. So a lot of the time I'm valuing properties, and I can show I've sold this one, even in the road. Here's the brochures to have a look. So therefore, Mrs. Only, your house is worth X, and I get told, well, blah blah, estate agent valued it at 50k more. So, and I said, well, what do you think about that? Well, I'd love that to be the case. And well, what evidence was there shown? Well, there wasn't any evidence. So that's a really difficult part. And I think when you're commenting about first-time buyers and even buyers, and I said about transparency, if as a buyer, you shouldn't ask the agent, oh, it's on at, let's say, 800,000. What are they going to take? Because as an agent, you're employed to get the very best price for the owner. And last year, 2022 last year, something like 92% of what we sold went for the guide price or above. That's very different now. it's either the guide price or a little bit below. But I think that if you are wanting to buy a home, you see the home that you like, you'll have to provide evidence to fit in with the anti-money laundering regulations. So you have to provide proof of funds, you have to provide ID, you have to provide we always ask for a mortgage agreement in principle.
Very important.
Well, and it really is, because we've had, so in nearly 4 years, we have not had one sale go wrong where the buyer couldn't get the mortgage, not one. Because whilst I would speak to a broker, I certainly wouldn't accept an email from a broker just saying, "Oh, hi, Mr. and Mrs. blah blah are good for the money." I wouldn't believe that. We want to see that they can get the money in the form of a certificate. So advice to any buyer getting a mortgage is go through the process. Hopefully with Zita, go through the process. Get a mortgage agreement in principle, and then go out looking. Estate agents will take you more seriously as well.
Absolutely, and this is my experience. No offer is accepted out there without a agreement in principle, decision in principle. And I 100% get it why agents want to see that. They want to know that the clients can get the funds, but also the clients won't get any surprises down the line, and they know what they can afford. So it is so important. I completely agree with you.
But also, as an owner, it must feel reassuring when your agent rings you and says, "I've got an offer of, the guide price," which is great. We've if there's a chain, we would always check. If under offer to first time buyer, we'd ring that agent. We'd find out how long the sale's been agreed, how the local search has been done, has a mortgage offer out. We'd ask loads of questions. So when we tie up the offers or agree the sales with our owners, we go to them maybe with a house visit or over the phone, depending on what they want to do. I like to do home visits personally, and we would say, "Great news! So we've got an offer of 800,000. It's guide price 800,000. They've passed our due diligence process, and what that means is that we've seen their ID, we've qualified that, we've got a mortgage agreement in principle, which means they can get the mortgage, and they're adding in, I don't know, an amount of funds, say 80k, and we've seen that bank account." So as an owner, if I was that owner, I'd be thinking, "Great, they've really investigated to make sure this buyer can go ahead," which means that as long as we find a house or we're going to vacate, then there's no reason why it won't happen.
Absolutely. And it was interesting what you said about sellers occasionally expecting that to get the house valued higher than what you say. And did you see down valuation if that happens, or you are able to, and the good agent would actually sit down and after showing proofs, having an in-depth conversation, kind of make the seller understand that there's no points listing it for 50,000 more, because then at a later down the line your buyer will have a down valuation from the lender, for example,
or they don't sell,
or don't sell.
So this is where we're in really, really interesting times now, because we won't take anything on the market if it's too much money. I learned that the hard way in my previous role as MD. The transparency part of this business is really important. So if I value the house at 800 and a customer wants to use me, but our ex-agent has said 875, we want to use you, but could you put it on at 875? We wouldn't do it. We would walk away and say, we're not going to sell it at that. It costs me a reasonable amount of money to put houses on the market, professional photos, EPCs, professional video, professional floor plan. We can be at a house for the longest period I've been at a house is 9 hours for a very big house in Reigate. But even for a 750k house, we're going to be in the house for 2 to 3 hours, and that's me or one of my team with the photographer. So we pay up front for that, and we don't expect our clients to pay anything. We believe it's part of the service. So we don't want to be doing that on a house we know from day one we're not going to sell, and that relationship from day one with your owner will start to deteriorate straight away, because they're thinking, "Great, Chris is going to sell it 875, amazing," and all the lovely, wonderful things they'll be thinking. We'd be thinking as an agent, "It's too much money. We're not going to sell it. It's only a matter of time before we have to ask that question to reduce the price to the value that we put on it initially. So it's much better to say, look, thank you very much, but at this stage, we'll market it at 800 with all these lovely things for you. If you want to try more money, then try another agent. And that does happen every now and then. And then I get I really wanted to use you, and if it doesn't work out, we'll come back to you. It's too late. And one of the most important things about marketing your home is getting it right the very first time. If you get it right the first time with the right agent, the right price point, it will sell. If you get it wrong by being too much money, especially in a falling market, you can end up chasing the price down, and you'll never be a step ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. And I think what doesn't look good, and often my clients pick up on it, that Zita, that property was on the market, like it's been on the market for 2 months now. So automatically they think, and I think, that yes, it could be overpriced, or maybe it's not selling for another reason, but could be that it's overpriced. And then it could have a even worse effects, because it might sell even lower than what would have been if it was well priced from the very beginning.
That's exactly what.
Because it doesn't look good being on the market for so many months, isn't it?
Yeah. People will build the wrong impression of a house. There are some very, very good properties available now in Reigate and the surrounding areas that are just too much money, and if they were at the right price, they would sell. But the damage is done for profile, because people will think, well, there must be something wrong with that then, because that looks quite a good house. It might be too much money, but why hasn't anybody made an offer? Because if it's completely in the wrong price range, then you can end up with lots of viewings, but the customers don't want to buy it purely because it's lacking something really special that it needs in that price range.
Definitely. And I think, Chris, you already answered quite a lot of my questions when it comes to selling a property. And I think honesty is very important, trust between you and the buyer. And if that's not there, then most likely there could be issues down the line.
So selling your house is arguably the most important thing you'll ever do. We sell most of the houses we sell are between, say, 750,000 and 1.5 million. We don't sell much under 750,000 anymore, and that's mainly because we don't get invited out, and we have sold property above 3 million. But what I think is really important is building, as an owner, finding someone that you want to work with, and work with them, as I said, as a relationship, because it's going to be tough, and that relationship could be a year. It could be less, it could be more. So if you've entered into a relationship with one of you not feeling comfortable, then it will start to, like I said, it will start to break down. And for me, complete honesty with the price. Deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. Give feedback. So feedback is one of the biggest things I hear from owners who say, "Agent, yeah, great, but we had to keep ringing them and finding out what's going on." And that, for an agent's point of view, is really difficult, because so it's Monday today, so we would have had 18-20 viewings at the weekend. So our job on a Sunday stroke mainly Monday is to ring the buyers. We want to find out what they thought about the house, so we could feedback to our owners and say they did want to buy it, and they want to make an offer of X if they pass the due diligence, or more often than not at the moment they didn't want to buy it, and why. And if something keeps coming up over and over again, we can say to our owner, they really don't like the bright red living room, so let's get some paint out and let's paint it white, something like that. The reality is that most of the time is that they'll say, it might be a bit expensive, or the third bedroom's too small. But what we're finding, and this is something quite new in the last few years, is that if the customer buyer that we're ringing to get the feedback doesn't answer the phone and we leave a message, they just don't ring us back. And it's tough, because I'm now having to say to my owners, look, this is what we will do. This is the process. We will ring twice. We will leave 2 messages over a 24-hour period. If the buyer, they obviously don't want to buy it, because otherwise they'd be on the phone. And if they don't ring back, we can't keep ringing them. And that's something that's really crept in since COVID. People's sort of lethargy to want to offer up feedback however critical it is, because if it's critical, it's critical.
Absolutely. Just could help to change things.
Yeah.
And sell that property if they know what is that
Absolutely.
issue, whether it's reduction of the price or whether, as you said, painting from red to white.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, if you're in the wrong price range, if you're asking the wrong price, because every now and then I hear, well, I haven't had many viewings, and even if I had an offer, we might have considered reducing, something like that. But if you're in a price range where that house type size is just in the wrong range, it means that all the buyers are looking for something that house hasn't got. So you end up with no viewings. So you then have to read between the lines. And I can access the sort of back end of Rightmove, and I can see how many views a property's had, how many detailed views it's had. So, if a property's getting 3,000 or 4,000 views over a 2-week period, detailed views, that's where the customers clicked on the hero image and then gone in and had a good look at the property online. You're getting 3,500, 4,000 in a couple of weeks. It means that it's attracting a lot of interest from the wrong people. Because if you're getting all those detailed views and no viewings, it means that the marketing that we're doing is perfect because it's attracting everybody, but the price range is wrong.
So in terms of when you're listing a property, do you have any top tips to the potential sellers?
Yeah.
What questions to ask you or how to prepare for listing the property? What would be those top tips from you, Chris?
So for me, your window to the world is the internet. When I was at my last company, I did a lot of research before I set up Hound and Porter. And what we knew back then was 92% of people, when they first start looking for a house, they go online. It was desktop. It then migrated to an iPad, and now it's mobile. So accessibility to the agent is really important. And in our local area, we are the only agent open on a Sunday, for example. And we'll do viewings on a Sunday. We'll do valuations on any day of the week, because people's habits have changed and people work long hours during the week. Saturday could be sport day for the children, and Mrs. might be playing golf or something, whatever. So Sunday is the day where they can go viewing. And we're the only people that are open. And I think, so we work late hours. So if you Google us, we're open 24 hours a day. So, we will answer the phone up until 10, 11 o'clock at night. We can all work remotely. Our tech is very high end, so we can access emails remotely on all devices. The phone rings automatically on our mobiles, even though you ring in the office. I'm digressing, but coming back to your point of to advise an owner what to do. The point I was coming on to was your window to the world. And photography is a huge factor now in marketing your home. People don't look in shop windows. They'll walk down the high street on a Sunday, they'll have a good lunch, they'll look in the window. Those people aren't buying anything. So it's what you do online on Rightmove, who have enormous market share, Zoopla, Prime Location, and your social media feeds. So we now actually get more customers, buyers, and owners through Instagram and Facebook than we do from Zoopla and Prime Location now. And our own website attracts a lot of people. So my advice to all owners is, however big, small your house is, you need to declutter it. And we always give 10 days to 2 weeks. So if somebody was to phone me today and say, I want to put my house on the market, it's Monday, I'd be saying, okay, well, we'll come round next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week. Abby and I, my photographer, will come round. And between now and then, this is what I need you to do. Some people take it really seriously and, okay, I'm going to walk around from room to room, Chris, with a notepad. And can you tell me what I need to do? And I got a really funny story, actually. So it was a good couple of years ago now, and I went to see this house. It was in Earlswood, a little village just outside of Red Hill. And it was what I call a lived-in house. So it was a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, Victorian, but there were 5 people living in it, 2 adults, 2 big grown-up children, and a small one. And it was lived in. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff. So, and she said, oh, can you go ahead? Yeah, absolutely no problem at all. And jokingly, and I said, you need to declutter and you need to means all these things away and imagine looking at your room, what you want to see and what you don't want to see, because that's what we're going to do. And we're happy to move stuff, and it's all a bit of an illusion. We'll move everything out of a kitchen. As you'll remember, Zita, we'll move everything out of the kitchen. We'll put it in the dining room. We'll take a picture of the kitchen. Then we'll move all the stuff back in, and we'll do that. That's why it takes so long. So I said to this lady, what you could do is go to Sainsbury's Homebase in Reigate and buy some of those 60-litre plastic boxes, and just put anything you don't really need and just cluttering up the place in the boxes, and that'd be great, wouldn't it? Anyway, I left it. Went back 10 days later, walked into the house, and it was like walking into a different house. There was nothing in the house, and I was like, "Where's all your stuff?" She had to go and have a look in the car, and she had a Volvo estate, and there must have been 12 or 15 of these boxes in the car. Around, you couldn't get in the car. She had literally put it all in the car for the photos. The photos came back great. The video was great. And it sold relatively quickly inside of 2 or 3 weeks at that time.
This is the thing, that those photos, and I agree with you, and just to declutter, just so people can see the size of the rooms. And it's interesting, psychologically, people often can't see beyond, what's in the house. So it has to be decluttered so they can see the size and they can see themselves living in there.
Yeah. Well, so you've got three stages. You live in a house as you live in the house, whoever you are. You then have to uber prepare for the photographs, and that is a lot of effort. And then when you do your viewings, you're somewhere in the middle. The house needs to feel lived in, but it needs to feel smart. There is nothing worse than showing a customer buyer around a house that's everyone's just got out of bed or something. It just gives off all the wrong impressions. And we do all our viewings. We don't allow any of our owners ever to do a viewing. We'll accompany them all, because we believe that we're the best people for the job. That's what we're getting paid to do, and I think sometimes owners and buyers together build the wrong impressions of each other. Naturally, most people are really nice. That's what I found. We deal with nice people, and you can just see it, can't you? Owner shows buyer around. Owner's really nice and offering up cups of tea and maybe a glass of wine on a Friday night or whatever. Buyer walks in, and within a minute they think, I don't like this. They're not going to say, thank you very much, I don't want to go upstairs because I don't like it. They're just going to be really polite, and they're going to take the cup of tea, and they're going to have a wander around, and they're going to give this is nice, and how long have you done this? And it's a half an hour, 45-minute meeting, of which after minute 1 the buyer knew they weren't going to buy it. All finishes, and it's a very nice shake of hands. Should we swap numbers and all this sort of stuff? And then owner rings and goes, I've just shown them around and they loved it and they're definitely going to buy it. And you ring the buyer and they go, I don't like it. So that's why it's much, much better that you work with an agent that's going to offer that service. And some people give us keys. Other people will turn up 10 minutes early. We'll be like ships in the night, and they'll go out. And then we'll show the house, and we'll lock up and shut the front door or whatever. But I think that's a really important part is if you're choosing an agent, I'm digressing a bit, if you're choosing an agent, you need to make sure that you're going to get your viewings accompanied every single time. So top tips. Well, first of all, we've got 7 top tips for selling on our website, but decluttering for the images, staging your home for those images. So for vacant properties, I've got a sort of little box of props: towels, plates, glasses, vases, fresh flowers, false flowers, fake flowers. So you make it look quite nice. So and little things like that make a difference. Fresh flowers in your own home for images are really important.
Absolutely, I agree. Just a bunch of flowers makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does, and it catches the eye. Definitely if they're seasonal. In spring, I love the daffs. I think I think that really makes a room look nice. Our photographer takes what I would call real-time photography, i.e., what you see is what you're going to visit. There can be lots of trickery in photography, and again, you learn the hard way. If you've taken a picture of a garden and you've taken it from an angle where it looks much bigger than it is. Imagine you're the buyer and you're travelling an hour to do the viewing, and you've asked for a big garden. It looks like it's got a big garden, and the agent's allowed you to believe it's got a big garden. You get there and it's 20 foot. You're going to be really annoyed. And that's not going to be good for the owner. It's not good for the reputation of the agent, and most importantly, the buyer's done an hour trip to get there, and they were never going to buy it in the first place. So again, being transparent with people. If something needs work and somebody doesn't want to do work, then don't view it because it needs a lot of work. You don't want to do it. You don't want to do any work.
Absolutely. I think you just get it right, that the photos are nice, the home is welcoming, but at the same time being honest and not wasting anyone's time, being honest about the size of the rooms and the garden, and you want the photos to reflect that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all about numbers. Some of our owners will only accept viewings from people who are proceedable, i.e. they're in a position to go ahead, whether that be under offer or have nothing to sell. My view is that, because I like to move the community, so my view is if somebody wants to view a house property and they are living locally and it's not on the market or not under offer, I would still show them round. I'm happy to take the time out of my day to do that. If somebody's moving into the area from anywhere, that's outside our immediate area and they're not on the market, a lot of our owners will not want to do that viewing because most people are very house proud, so they're going to want to make sure the house presents itself well. They're going to have to go and find something to do for an hour. From an agent's point of view, that's time out of our day. And if there's no chance of a sale happening, then there doesn't seem to be much point. So a lot of our owners instruct us to say, if they're local, fine. If they're outside the area, then I don't really want to do the viewing. So I get people's frustrations if you're moving back into the area or you're moving into the area never been here before and you can't view anything because owners won't accept them. I get the frustration. Get your house on the market. Get your house on the market. Get a buyer that will wait for you, and then go out looking. You're going to be in a much better position. If you see the house of your dreams, you can buy it. If you go out viewing when your house is not on the market and you see the house that you really, I could really see myself living here, you can't buy it. And then somebody else might come along who has sold or got nothing to sell and snap it up.
Absolutely. And also those sellers need to know what their property worth, isn't it? So if they don't know how much they can sell, they won't know necessarily that they can buy it. So it's all about numbers as well.
It is. And if the value of they might have had their house valued, and if the value they've been given is incorrect, and they're basing their purchase on a valuation on their sale which is wrong,
it will fall apart, isn't it?
It's going to fall apart. Yeah. And also owners are not going. We've just had a situation recently where the lady viewed the house, loved the house, happy to meet the price, and then had to go away and sell her house in Worcester Park, and the house stayed on the market, and it took her time to get it on the market and get it sold. She did sell it, and it took her 3 weeks. And she did actually end up buying this other house, but we showed another 8 or 9 people around that property after she'd made her offer. So she had to wait, and it must have been really nerve-wracking for her, but we couldn't take it off the market because she wasn't in a position to move. So my view with it, if you don't want any stress, if you've got a genuine desire to move and you have a property to sell and you have to sell the property to buy another one, get it on the market, pick your agent that you think you can work with, and don't base it on fee or price. Base it on experience in the area, knowledge, and then discuss fees and price after. Price needs to be supported with evidence. Fees, again, really, really emotive. We charge a fee and that's it. We don't negotiate. What we charge is reasonable. Those that charge less and then go down and down and down, I would argue what their negotiating skills are going to be like if they're happy to reduce their fees so much. And 9 times out of 10, if you're picking an agent based on fee, you're going to struggle at a later point.
I agree, and often my clients ask me before we get to that point, and they just want to know how much they can borrow. They have a house to sell and they want to move, and they are first time they are selling a property. They want to know, like, oh, so how should I list it? And am I right that it's a good idea to talk to a few agencies, sit down with them and basically interview them, basically find out more about what are you going to do, find out about their personalities. Can I build a trust with them? So it all comes down to the transparency, of course, cost as well, but often the trust, the experience, the connection, relationship building from the very beginning could be more important that cost. Is that right?
I think so. You can make a a horrific error of judgment if you just base the agent on who's going to be the cheapest. And every now and then we get a phone call to say, "Oh, we're thinking of selling our house. How much do you charge?" My answer to that would be, "I'd really like to come and meet you, and let's have a look at the house, and we can talk through our charges." If somebody is insistent on the phone, they want to know your fees, we would divulge the fees, and we'll probably never speak to that person again. Because if you want cheap, then there's going to be other agencies that are going to be cheaper.
Absolutely, and it's often cost comes into equation, and when somebody's buying a house, selling a house, there will be cost attached. There will be agents' costs, there will be solicitors' costs, moving costs, brokers' costs.
Yeah.
And all this adds up, but it's so important that they are not cutting costs on service. Basically, I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely. I mean, a recommendation is the best route. A lot of the I'm personally not actually on Facebook, but as a business we are, and every now and then you see in We Love Reigate, "Oh, I'm thinking of selling my house, and who would you use?" and all different names, but a list of maybe 8 or different agencies where people have had a good experience. So that it's actually quite hard if you go down that route, because you're faced with, well, I've got 8 names now. What do I see all 8? I mean, really, if I like your phrase, interviewing estate agents, you should see 3. Personally, I'm the biggest sort of poacher turned gamekeeper you're ever going to meet. So having run 14 offices for a corporate company and all that stands for, now running my own business with a team of 5, I think that a business that's operated and run by the business owner, and I'm not that owner that goes and plays golf every day. I'm in the office 10 hours a day with the team, working together, to produce good results. If you can find a business where the business owner is operating in the business and not just owning it, from my point of view, you're going to get somewhere. My mobile number's on my business cards, so we are completely transparent for anybody that wants to ring me anytime. I regularly get phone calls saying, "Oh, hi, my name's Zita. You sold my friend's house in blah. Can you help us?" I've recently had a contact from a lady in America who wants to sell a house that's failing at the moment, and we sold her sister's house in Oxted, and she said, "You've got to go to this chap," and she just rang me out of the blue. And that's good business. That's where I wanted to get to, where like I said, 75% of people now are a recommender. We booked 2 valuations this morning within about 10 minutes of each other, first thing on a Monday morning, which is a great start, and one of them was a recommendation.
Absolutely, and I think this is what it is, and that's when people will know that they will get a good service, friend, family recommendation. Excellent. So in terms of sellers, so we did talk about what people should expect, what it should look like when they instruct an agent to sell a property. How about buyers? I mean, I deal with obviously a lot of first-time buyers. They need so much guidance, and they often bombard me with questions, and I do answer those questions to the best of my knowledge, but I'm not an estate agent. What they want to know most of the time is how to negotiate, how to get the dream house and negotiate it right, because they don't want to fall into the trap where they offer too little and they lose it because of that, offer too much, and then they could have get it for a lower price point. What's your advice?
Okay, so horrible cliched term, but a house is worth what somebody's prepared to pay. And during COVID, when the government created the stamp duty holiday, we had people offering hundreds of thousands of pounds over a price. A, because they were running away from London from the pandemic, and B, to beat the stamp duty deadline of June, and then it tapered off to September, which was a £15,000 saving. So it seemed a bit crazy to me. You'd offer £100,000 over the price to save 15k, but people did what they did. We don't deal with a lot of first-time buyers, but I have done in my career. And I think the best advice to give is only listen to the right people. You need a good agent to speak with. You need a good broker. You need a good lawyer. In fact, it doesn't matter if you're a first-time buyer. You need those 3 key ingredients. We recommend you, and we have a brilliant lawyer that we recommend as well. and we've been working with her for a long time now. The key is not to make an offer that's too low. There's a fine line between making an offer that's not acceptable, but the owner doesn't get upset, and making an offer that is so low that the agent gets annoyed and the owner gets annoyed. Because if you end up in those realms, what happens is that when you start to go, you've got nobody on your side. The agent is thinking that's ridiculous, and the owner is upset. So you have to find a figure that you believe A, you can afford, and B, isn't going to upset an owner. But my belief is that if you see a house it's well priced, you can afford to pay it. If it was me, I would meet the price and I would say it's 500. I would say I'll offer £500,000, no problem at all. Here's all my evidence. I'd like it withdrawn from the market immediately. So an owner's asking this amount of money. As a buyer, you're paying that amount of money. That relationship is a good relationship from minute one. If there's a week of protracted negotiations, that means that 9 times out of 10, during that process of it going through, there'll be other problems that arise. Oh, I want a bit more for the curtains now because I didn't get my best price, or I'm not gonna leave the cooker because again they didn't meet the price I wanted, and lots of little niggly things that can turn what was a good transaction into a real difficult one. So I'm always a believer in if you can afford the price, it's within your affordability, meet the price. If you I'll come on to something in a minute. If you offer low, you might get it accepted, but you still stand the danger of losing it. So what I mean by that is that, I'm sorry to bore you.
No, very. I'm our listeners are very interested in finding out what's the strategy when it comes to negotiation.
Yeah. So let's say the property is 500. There's been a number of viewings. You offer 480, 485, let's say, and the owner decides to accept it. Nothing's ever is set in stone until exchange of contracts. That can take, even if it's a first-time buyer with no chain buying a vacant property, that can still take 3 months. No reason why it should, but it does. So 485 on 500, and there's been 20 people through the door, let's say, and you've got your offer accepted. 2 weeks down the line, one of the other buyers that viewed at the time is now in a really good position, and they come back and they say, "Oh, is blah blah house still available?" "No, it's currently under offer." "All right, okay then. We really liked it. We'd like to make an offer of 500. By law, you have to put every offer forward to the owner up until a point of exchange of contracts. You have to do it, and it should be phoned up in writing within 24 hours. So we would have to go through all the due diligence with this other buyer, even though we would say it is under offer, it's been accepted, it's going through, it's off the market. If they say, "I want to offer that," you have to do it. So you go through all the due diligence that I've spoken about, and then we have to ring the owner and say, "Just to let you know, we've had an offer from this lady. At the time she wasn't proceedable, now she is, and it's 500,000. They've already accepted an offer of 485. Owner says, "Oh yeah, I'll accept that then. So can you tell the people at 485 that I don't want them anymore?" So we then had to phone the buyer that thinks, "Oh, I got £15,000 off. Great. I mean, this is good news." And we phone them and say, "I'm really sorry. Explain the situation. Our customer owner has asked us to go back and accept the offer of 500 now." But even in these troublesome times where, we talk about price, where you can read different things from different papers saying market's going up, market's going down. The reality this year is that in the first quarter of this year on price, we saw a correction of price. And what I mean by that is that we saw overpriced properties coming down to the right price. So it looks like prices were falling, but they weren't really. They were just correcting. What is happening now is we are seeing a decrease in prices. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Properties need to be competitively priced, and it needs to be a good property for it to sell.
Absolutely, and you're right. COVID inflated the property prices, right? So it is a correction, really.
No.
And interestingly enough, me as a broker, I don't really see down valuations, and I do explain my clients that the properties are priced correctly by the agent. Agents want to sell and at the right price point. So if they were not priced correctly, then we would be getting a lot of down valuation, which we don't.
You would be getting, and I've been through periods in my career where there's been a lot of down valuations, and I think that it is I get asked all the time. What's happening with the market? Where are we going? It's all very scary times. It is, but we've been used to such cheap money for so long that everybody's got used to paying sub 1%, and actually the norm is somewhere 4.5% to 6%. I mean, those of us that are older than 50 will remember Black Wednesday when the interest rates went up to 17% in one day. So getting money now well, you'll know better than me, 2-year, 5-year fixed rate at 6%, whilst it's a far cry from the 1.5% you probably would have got 3 or 4 years ago, it's still not a disaster. But it's the public coming round to the new norm, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and it's an interesting process because just a year ago rates were still very low, and then suddenly they shoot it up. So now looking at those ultra low rates, which weren't the norm either, people have to get used to again the normal rates, which perhaps not the 5 and the 6%. I agree, but will they ever go down to that 1.25%? Not likely.
No, I think we will end up this time next year hovering around 4.25%, 4.5%, something like that. And if that's where we end up, I think we would have done okay. And again, part of an agent's due diligence process should be when you're seeing your agreement in principle, when was that? And if it was in January this year at 4%, and they can't exercise that offer by the time it runs out, they can, well, you'll know as you come back into the market, that same product is going to be 6%, not 4%, and that might mean the difference of buying and not buying. So due diligence from an agent's point of view is really, for me, really high up there, working on behalf of your owner, making sure that people can buy. And we did have the exact case happen last year, where the gentleman had his numbers run by the broker, and had provisionally said, I would like to buy this. It was at 800, offered 795. I'd provisionally like to buy it. And we were like, okay, well, provisionally that's okay. This is what I need to see, as I've said before. When he reran the numbers, because he hadn't done it for 6 or 9 months, the cost of the mortgage had gone up by £2,000 a month, which meant he couldn't afford it. So he ended up not moving and staying in rented accommodation. Now, if we hadn't gone through that process and asked his broker to rerun the numbers, because I kept being told, he's good for the money, he's good for the money. You run the numbers, more importantly, show your customer, your client, how much it's going to cost him. Oh, everything will be fine. Well, it wasn't fine. And basically the buyer said, I can't afford to move now because I can't afford the extra £2,000 a month.
Absolutely. And this is the thing that estate agent, it's not just your job is not just to list a property, show a property, sign some paperwork. You have to be there and check things, because maybe the broker should, but if the broker doesn't, then obviously you need to step in and you need to ask that question, and you need to guide the client that, look, you might need to recheck those figures rather than.
We find with brokers, Zita, much like you, if you're dealing with a broker who is working for himself, the likelihood of getting correct information minute one is very high. And that's why, for me, like I said, good agent, good broker, good lawyer. If you can get those recommendations, then you're gonna be a long way to actually getting moved.
Absolutely. So going back to the market. So we talked about the market a little bit, and it is summer 2023, and it's been a roller coaster for all of us. Absolutely. I think roller coaster is a good word for it. And obviously last week, Bank of England again increased the base rate. We saw that again, inflation is still very stubborn. And obviously you did say it's a correction of prices, but it was reported that the house prices fell at the fastest annual rate in 14 years. So is it a good time to buy? A lot of people are asking me, and interestingly enough, people are buying. People still want to buy it. I don't think that rate increases completely stopped people buying or selling. But often people ask me, is it the right time to buy? And I always explain that, there's no right time or wrong time. Is it right for you? Why are you looking to buy? Why are you looking to sell? So it's often circumstantial, I think. But I'm interested, and I'm sure the listeners really want to know what's your view on this.
It's a very, very good question. So when I was talking about correction in prices, you just to recap on that, you had in the early part of the year you had a correction on prices for those that were overpriced that came down to the right price. What's happening now? You're right. I think it was Nationwide that published those stats. Is you are getting properties falling. They are. There's no way way of denying that. I think that prices are going to keep on deflating slightly, probably till the end of the year. And I suspect by the end of the year, mortgage rates will be coming down, and therefore going into next year, there'll be a lot more confidence in the market. What this type of market does is what I call the casual seller. Oh, I'd like to move. If I found the right dream home, I'd like to. Those people have gone. Now what you've got is I have to move. There's 4 of us in a 2-bed house. We can't live here anymore as a family. And yes, the interest rates are high, and we'd rather not pay it. But the reality is that the children are growing, and we have to move. Or I'm in my 80s, let's say, and I'm living in a massive house, and I can't afford the energy bills. I'm starting to get unsteady on my feet. I have to trade down, because if I stay here another 2 or 3 years, I might have a fall. And if I have a fall, I might have a forced move rather than a move that I want to make. So what the market is producing now is people that have got a genuine desire and have to do it. I mean, I don't know the exact stats, but it's very strange at the moment, because there's usually you have lots of buyers and no sellers, and lots of sellers and no buyers. That's normally what happens. But at the moment, you've got this strange curve where there's not very many people registering, and actually there's not that much property for sale. And that's because a lot of people are sitting on their hands, and this market has taken out all of those I might move type of person. So there's never a good time and never a bad time, because if we all had a crystal ball and we could read where the market's going to go, then we'd all be millionaires, but nobody has. So, so I think that the way that I would look at it is that if I have to move for whatever reason, and I can afford the repayments for a period of time, and I'm not crippling myself, then I would move. There are people, Zita, that it's very sad times. There are people that have to sell because they can't afford to pay their mortgage back anymore. And that really is really sad. People being forced out of their dream house purely because they can't pay for it anymore. And hopefully that will stop. So yeah, I can't answer that question entirely. I don't think there's a right answer to that. I think that if you can afford it and you have to, why not crack on? You have good and bad months. August is a particularly tough month. March, June, September are very good months to buy and sell. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is so true. And that's how I see it. It's never, do you have to move? Would you, you are in a position where you actually want to move, or you have to move, then you will probably do that. And I don't know, what's your view apart from rates? Is there anything else which is a challenge for buyers and sellers? Because rates particularly, of course, and people think twice now, should I buy, because the rates are high. But as a mortgage broker, what I find is that if people want to buy and ready, they will actually. And because rates are, it's a curve, it's a long-term up and down kind of movement. Over a 25-year mortgage term, you will see the ups and the downs. Yeah. This is the market. So whether you buy now on the high and later you will be in the low, or vice versa, it will happen most likely. So that should not potentially put people off.
No, if you're looking at staying in your home for I can only comment on my immediate area. But if you're looking at staying in your home for 5 to 7 years, you're going to make money. You might find that over the next year, 18 months, the price might fall away, but then it will catch up. So I think that if you're thinking I'm only going to live here for a couple of years, then you might find that you might catch a bit of a cold. You may break even on what you paid, or you might lose a bit. Not many people do that. Most people stay in a property for 5 years minimum.
And it's long time. Again, property is just like any investment, long-term investments. If you don't invest for longer, minimum 3 to 5 years, you won't see the return. That's anything, wherever you put your money, whether it's stocks and shares or property, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you'll just need to take a slightly longer term view on things. What we have found is quite interesting is that people ask me about apartments, and where we are, particularly in Red Hill, there's I'm based in Reigate, but there's a lot of apartments going up. Again, if I was a developer now, I wouldn't be building 1 or 2 bed apartments unless they've got outside space. One thing COVID has brought to the fore is that people want to be outside. But like I said, we don't sell very many apartments, and we have struggled to sell those where there's no outside space. So when I advise developers on build product, which I do quite a lot of that, we advise 2, 3, 4 bed houses, family houses. That's what people want and what people need, and that's how they're going to maximise their value. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of blocks of apartments that are either rented or vacant, and that's not very good for a community at all.
No, and that's very interesting because obviously I'm local to you, and that's what I can see, flats being built, and I do wonder sometimes that are they actually going to sell them? So that's quite interesting.
I think again, many developers look at pound per square foot. How many properties can I get on there to make the most money? And I get that completely. But we deal with a number of smaller developers who actually do value their own legacy and do want to build something that the community will like. And it's not just about, obviously, you're making a living. But if you can put, say, 4 really nice 3-bedroom homes on a plot of land, why would you not do that rather than putting the traditional 9 flats where you haven't got to put affordable housing or social housing, and you can make more money? Well, the reality now is that those flats aren't selling. So there are a number of blocks of 9, not in Reigate Red Hill, but outside as well, that are just completely empty.
Very interesting. And then clearly, again, I can only talk from my point of view as a broker and see what clients are buying or interested in buying. Everybody wants to buy a freehold. People will buy a leasehold if the budget doesn't stretch as far of buying freeholds.
Some people can only afford an apartment, can't they? But if you can find an apartment that's got a little garden or a balcony or a roof terrace, they're gonna hold their value a lot more than a 1 or 2 bed apartment, second floor with no lift with no outside space. You're really limiting. So if you imagine the market as a piece of pie, every type of property will have a section of that pie. So if you're a 3 or 4 bedroom Victorian semi-detached house in Reigate, you're going to have a quarter of the pie. Lots of those properties to sell, and lots of people would buy those. If you're selling a 1 bed apartment, second floor with no outside space, you're going to be there's going to be a number of those in that pie, but very few buyers. So you just got to think about selling as well. Now, some people are going to have no choice. I've only got X amount to spend, and therefore that's all I can afford to buy. And you have to sort of accept that for some people that is the case. So for those people, try and be on the ground or first floor, not second if it doesn't have a lift, because then you're limiting to somebody's got a baby, they have to carry the baby up 2 flights, or elderly people aren't going to want to walk up 2 flights of stairs. Location, is it near a station? Is it near the high street? Can you walk places? If you're buying a 1 bed apartment, second floor, with no access to facilities, that's going to be tough to sell.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting you did mention just briefly now, people will consider where the property is, how far is from the station and so on. So location, one of my favorite programs. Is location so important in your point of view? So when people start viewing properties and want to find the right property, is location still very important?
I think it is. I think that every property will sell at the right price. There's no doubt about that. Those that sell quicker and hold their value more will be in a good spot. And if you've got I'm always a believer buy the worst house in the best road rather than the best house in the worst road. We're quite lucky that in our area that we operate in, that there aren't that many bad properties or bad areas, really, to be honest. But there are hotspots of roads where people will really want to live, and those properties will hold their value. So again, when you're asking what buyers need from an agent, is if you're going into an area and you don't know the area, build a relationship with an agent that's going to tell you the truth. I always advise people, you see a house and you love it and you want to buy it, on a Friday night at 11:30, come into the area, drive around the property that you think you want to buy, and just see what's going on. What are the pubs doing? What's the local chippy up to? And you might find things that you don't like, and you could have a beautiful house 200 yards from a really bad pub, and you're only going to find that out if you witness it for yourself. So if you're moving into an area you don't know, always research the area in the mornings at rush hour to see what's going on, and evenings on a Friday and Saturday night to see what's happening.
Absolutely. Brilliant. And then last question, I could talk to you forever, Chris, because it's so useful and interesting what you even though being in the industry, I have good idea of, and being a homeowner, of course, and I know the area as well where you work. But it's always interesting to get those golden nuggets of information, and the listeners will take so much away. But I know we don't have a crystal ball, and that's same thing, constantly telling my mortgage clients, I don't have a crystal, I wish I did, but we can have, we can talk about what can happen and what can influence the market. What's your view, short term, long term, in terms of the property market in the UK, like generally, because we have clients here at the Mortgage Mum UK wide, but also where you operate, so the Surrey, Redhill, Reigate area?
It's very interesting because I can only really comment on locally, because when I think it was Nationwide said that prices fell at 3.8%, I think you said the largest drop for 14 years. That will be UK wide. So there will be pockets that have gone up in price and some that might have dropped 10%. What we experience in even in Reigate and Redhill, they're 1 mile apart, but the prices in general in Reigate are 20% higher than they are in Redhill, and they're a mile apart. I'm genuinely not worried about the housing market at all. I think that we are always as a team positive. It's tough. We're having to work for a living now. We did go through a period of time, 2020, 2021, with the stamp duty holiday, where anything would sell. And we're a small brokerage, and we sold in 1 month, I think it was March 2021, we sold 9 properties in a weekend. Yeah. Normally we would sell six to 9 a month, but we sold 9 in 1 weekend. Yeah, and in June 21, we had 18 people moving in 1 month. But even then, having been around the block a bit, I knew this is not going to last forever, and my team we're falling apart. It's, oh my god, we're creaking, and I'm said, just trust me. Once June the 30th's gone and we're into July, it will be like someone turned the tap off. And it did. It literally, July, after the stamp duty holiday main bit had finished, it was like tumbleweed time. And then you had a little bit of a peak at the end of September, and then nobody moved or did anything in Q4 because everybody had moved for the year. I don't know what the stats were, but maybe 80% of people moved in the first 6 months of that year that would have normally taken the whole year to move, purely to meet that threshold. So I think that the housing market in the UK is going to recover very quickly. Once it filters through that actually mortgage rates are starting to come down, and that confidence starts to come back into the market, a lot more buyers and I think I might sell type of seller will come back. It's a really interesting question because even this morning in our team meeting, when we're booking in one of these valuations that I spoke to you about earlier, India was asked the same question from I could overhear. What's the housing market doing? And she was really honest. It's not easy, but it's fine. It's we remain positive all the time. She said to India, "Oh, it's great to hear from you because another agent we just spoke to said, oh, don't bother putting my house on the market till January," which is just crazy advice. There are people who want to buy, people who want to sell. It's going to be a tough the next 4 or 5 months are going to be tough. But I do believe that once we get through that and it becomes common knowledge that mortgage rates are coming down, hopefully somebody in the press will say something positive about the housing market, confidence will return, and I think next year will be a really good year. Really good year.
Absolutely. And I think, of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but we are kind of at the peak and should soon we should see some recovery. And I think it's all about market confidence. And we did see that earlier this year when market confidence returned for a shorter period of time and suddenly these 4.5% rates came back, which was really obviously reassuring for people. So let's hope that this will carry on. We had another increase of Bank of England base rate increase last week. And then hopefully inflation starts coming down.
You all know better than me, but last week I think the 4 largest lenders in the UK all reduced their 2 and 5 year fixed rates, didn't they? I think didn't HSBC reduce one of their rates by up to 30% or something?
We had some small reductions. It's not like a lot of lenders coming out and start reducing like it happened earlier this year, where it was literally one after the other, and we had very frequent reductions. For example, I had remortgage, so not the sellers or buyers, but people who wanted to remortgage or needed to remortgage. I managed to cut their rates like 3 or 4 times in 6 months because the banks were just cutting and cutting. So they ended up actually taking a really good rate where they had a really high rate when we just started the process. So we have not seen that yet, but certainly there were a few smaller reduction. So I think it very much depends what inflation does soon, how much the market gain confidence, and we could potentially see again swap rates coming down, because often what people don't know, they think that the fixed rates are driven by the Bank of England base rate, and it isn't. Bank of England base rate can go up, but if market confidence is there and swap rates are reducing, that's what will make the banks reduce their fixed rate. So Time will tell.
Time will tell.
I think we can agree that we wish we had a crystal ball. We don't, but we can only be positive, I think.
You can draw on your... So all I do, I just draw my experiences of doing this job for so long, and we've been here before for different reasons, and we recovered. And 2008 is the last big problem we had, and year on year till 2017, our business improved. So from now running my own business, this year is not going to be a great year. Our years 2 and 3 were great. Year 4 is going to be tough. Year 5, absolutely supremely confident it's going to be great.
Absolutely. And I think the UK housing market is resilient.
It is, long term.
It is. And I think there will be times like now where there is a dip. But as you said as well, COVID pushed those prices up as well. And of course, people will have less confidence to sell and buy in the current market with these rates. But absolutely, I think UK housing market has always been resilient, and we should all be very positive.
We'll all be fine.
But anyway, it was so nice to speak to you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure our listeners will enjoy listening to your top tips and views on the market and everything else. And I hope that we can invite you again at one point in the future, because you are a very important part of the house buying, selling process. So we do want to probably catch up with you again at one point in the future.
It's been great, Zita. Nice to see you again, and I'd absolutely like to do it again. No problem at all.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, Chris.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mortgage Mum podcast, and I hope you learnt something new today and felt inspired in some way. Here at the Mortgage Mum, we really believe in people supporting people. So if you've enjoyed this episode of the Mortgage Mum podcast, please share and subscribe and rate and review this podcast, and let's keep supporting each other. And of course, if you would like help with your mortgage or your insurance, head over to www.themortgagemum.co.uk or contact any one of the team on social media. We would love to help you. Thank you for listening.